the 10th, 2019 at approximately 9:30 a.m. I'm Walt Valentine, Commission Chair. I'll now call to order the meeting of the Tennessee Private Investigation and Polygraph Commission. Executive Director Cody Vest, would you please call the roll?
Thank you. David Brown.
Present.
Larry Flair. Robin Brewer Johnston. Rick Jones. Excuse me, he should be on that list. Alan Russo.
Here.
Doug Shanks.
Here.
Walt Valentine.
Here.
Kendall Barnum.
Here.
And Charles Bradley.
Present.
Let the record show that you do have a quorum.
I'm here.
You didn't say Superman.
You're going to have to prove that. Actually, you're at the top of my list. I'm sorry, Stuart.
No, that's okay. It's okay.
I got an extra name on here, and I counted them, but yours, well, anyway, it was an error on my part. I am so sorry.
Oh, it is quite okay. Apology unnecessary.
All right. Any of our guests, if you would wish to speak to the commission, if you would please sign in up at the podium. Okay. The next item for approval is the agenda. I'll ask each commission member if they've received and had time to review a copy of the agenda. And if so, is there a motion to adopt this agenda?
I move we adopt the agenda.
Commissioner Brown seconded.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The next item on our agenda, excuse me, is the approval of the minutes of the last Education Committee and Commission meeting. Has each member received and had time to review a copy of these minutes? And if so, is there a motion to adopt these minutes?
Commissioner Brown moves that we approve them. Adopt them.
Second. Bain.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next on our agenda is the legal report by our staff attorney.
Right, good morning. We only have one case on the legal report this morning. It is 2019-059-571. Summary of this is that this complaint alleges that respondent disclosed confidential information to the person being investigated. Complainant hired respondent to run a background check on her husband as complainant was in the process of divorcing her husband. During the divorce proceedings and depositions, the husband stated he knew complainant had a background check done by respondent. The husband stated that he received a text from an unknown number that stated, quote, complainant, it's the actual name, check your email, I sent you a report, end quote. The husband then stated he looked up the phone number and saw it attached to respondent's website, so the respondent assumed complainant had a background check or some type of report done on him. Respondent denies sending this text and proffered other ways in which the husband could have found out this information. There's no evidence of the actual text being sent due to the nature of the party's divorce, and there are reasons to be concerned that the husband could make a statement to hide any misconduct on his part. Additionally, from the statement of the husband, even if this text was sent, it does not appear to rise to the level of revealing confidential client information to another individual. The alleged text does not reveal any information gathered from the report. It does not give any information about the nature of respondent's involvement with. And it also made an allegation that she was billed for an incomplete background check, as she believed it should have contained more information. She believed it should have contained more information in the results. There was no further information as to what she thought should be actually in the report. Respondent explained that it contained the results from all the sources it checked, which was as advertised to complainant before the search was done. Further, the complainant admitted that respondent's background check contained all of the same information as another background check that she used, so this allegation appears unfounded. The recommendation is to close this complaint.
Make a motion to accept his recommendation.
Seconded to accept this. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda are appearances. Do we have anyone wanting to appear before the commission?
Yes, sir, you do. You have a gentleman by the name of Joseph Standback. He is a intern polygraph examiner. Sir, have you signed in?
I did.
All right. I believe he's here because he was given his internship for a year, and whenever that expires, he has to ask for the extension for 6 months. I believe there has been an error made there. Have you received your second application yet, your license?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I sent the committee.
And he did pay the fee. Unfortunately, it got approved in advance of his appearance, but we have found out that there is a glitch in our computer system, and it granted him a year, and it should be only 6 months. Whenever that get, I'll need to have it back, and I'll give you the proper one.
Okay, that's
But
not a problem.
he's here to explain why he needs an extension.
Yeah, thank you, Ms.
Thank
Hess, for clarifying about that, but thank you. My name is Dr. Joseph Stainback IV. I'm currently a private investigator and polygraph examiner. I got started a little late. Let me give you a little bit of context. I'm not coming from law enforcement, so it's been a little bit of an uphill battle for polygraph. So I worked 30 years in the nuclear industry, 10 of which in Oak Ridge. And after 30 years of working in the nuclear industry, I worked at UT for 5 years teaching prevention of insider threats and espionage, and I decided to go entrepreneurial and do some work as a consultant in a research science. I went to polygraph school and I got hooked, and so now I'm a polygraph examiner intern. Thank you to the. So currently, I'm just going to go through and justify my extension for the next 6 months. Currently, I'm at 20 polygraphs. I accelerated that number of polygraphs recently because I'm now post-conviction trained, and I'm doing a lot of those right now. I have 10 next week after next, and then another 10 the following. So by the end of October, I should be about 30 polygraphs done to my 50. So although notwithstanding I have 6 months, I should be done with my 50 and completion of my internship by the end of the year. I also currently serve with the American Polygraph Association. I'm on 2 committees. Given my credentials, they over 173 hours of continuing education and diving into polygraph quite aggressively. In addition to that, I'm very much immersed myself in the polygraph, and I'm hoping I'm serving the state of Tennessee sex offenders from reoffending, and I would like the board to approve my internship for the next 6 months and continue my work.
Any questions for?
Did you tell us who your sponsor was? Is it Mr. Dodge?
And Ms. Vess, I really appreciate you bringing that up because I left that out, and I want to put that on record. As part of the Tennessee law, I have to have an intern sponsor, and it was right here on my letter, and I meant to mention it. My intern sponsor is a terrific guy. He's been helping me extensively. His name is Dave. Polygraph and the techniques and everything else. He's graciously agreed to continue my sponsorship for the next 6 months.
Anyone have a question for Mr. Steinman?
A few, yes, I do.
Okay.
10 years in Oak Ridge with ORNL, I assume?
No, sir, Mr. Bain. I was with Y12.
Oh, you're with Y12.
Yes, sir. My company won the contract or won Y12. I spent 30 years with BWX Technologies. I was with BWXT in Lynchburg building nuclear reactors for the Navy, working primarily security applications. And then I was transferred to Y12 as part of my corporate commitment. And then I retired with them.
With UTK, I assume?
Yes, sir, with UTK, with the Nuclear Engineering Department. So I created a class. It was a great class in the prevention of aberrant behavior, which is prevention of espionage. Unfortunately, my funding ran out, and that's why I left UT. I had a very healthy research program with the Department of State, traveled all around the world helping other countries prevention of aberrant behaviors. But I felt like that the course of my destiny was to go out on my own and work for myself, and it's actually working fairly well.
Two more questions. One, your research assignment for DOD, are you working with DOD, or is that affiliated with somebody else? Or?
Great question too. I'm very passionate about prevention of aberrant behaviors. With that said, while I was at UTK, I stood up a lab in parallel to my class I was teaching. So I had a polygraph, and I didn't do polygraphs per se. UT approved me to do clinical testing. I was not doing a polygraph, so I just want to officially state that. I was doing bio-response in my lab. While I was doing that, I have some ideas, and I still do, on improving the detection of deception. And so that spun off in an idea I had in a DOD call that they came out earlier in 2018. It took about a year. In early 2018, the call came out. I worked on it, and made a submission. And the spirit of that call was the DOD struggles on testing credibility assessment. Steve Duncan came here in the last commission meeting. He talked about ocular.
That was my next question.
Right. So he talked about ocular. So under the umbrella of credibility assessment, there's ocular, there's polygraph, there's voice stress, and there's others. The DOD struggles with testing credibility assessment because we don't know what ground truth is a lot. And so I came up with a concept which I think was pretty clever to use. If anybody's done escape room, where it's just a commercial environment where you go in and solve riddles, puzzles, and enigmas to go from room to room. And I proposed that to the DOD, coupled with red teaming, which is good guys and bad guys, which I did that in my classroom, coupled with clinical testing, and I won third place, and I got a pretty good award out of that. I went to D.C., made a presentation, which is like a pitch, and then the DOD is doing more, DARPA is doing more of prize awards. It's high risk, high reward, and you lob it over the fence, but you don't own it anymore. They own it. So I'm proud to win that, but it's not a sustained project that I'm doing other than the other research that I'm trying to do to build up my lab, if that makes sense.
Oh, sir. Thank you,
Yes,
sir. I'm finished with my questions.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Steinbeck.
I make a motion that we give him a 6 months extension.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? You have 6 months.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I'll send the certificate back.
Yes, sir. I'll be calling you.
Okay, yeah, I bet you will.
We've talked.
Any other appearances? Administrative matters, Executive Director Cody Vest.
All right, I believe the chairman did make an announcement that anybody who wants to speak as we go further into this meeting will need to come up and sign in. If you do not sign in, you do not have the right to speak. So has
And the right paper? Because there are two.
there's okay. This is the participating, where we had Ms. Stanback, of course. Yes, thank you for pointing that out. There are two forms. If you want to continue next.
all the people to,
Okay, well, I think we'll go ahead and go into my matters, if you don't mind. We do have what I'm going to be referring to as unfinished business. We'll get down to that. Administrative matters, first thing that is the monthly report. If you take a look at the monthly report, this is for our new commission members. This is the information that I do send out in advance to you. In July, we had an open position with Alan Russo and Rick Jones, and another one that was for the polygraph examiner. Then, if you go to August, you will see where our new members were appointed, Charlie Bradley and Kendra Barham, and Mr. Russo continues to serve at a full capacity on the commission. All right. Go down, and briefly, I'm just going to mention the budget, because that's going to be covered a lot more in depth under our unfinished business. You probably just have the July budget. I've got the one for August as well. We just got these in. Right now, you're carrying a positive balance of $7,725. That's all I'm going to say about that right now, because we're going to have a more in-depth conversation. We'll go over it if you wish. The legislative update, I don't believe we have any. We don't have any application review. Do we have any correspondence? No correspondence. So my little section is finished. We just flew right through that piece.
You did good.
Oh, well, okay. Now, under the Education Committee, what did we do for the Education Committee? Shauna, you want to give us a rundown on that one?
Yes, ma'am. We reviewed the 3 courses that were sent in, and the board has wished to wait for the PowerPoint for them to look at, and then they will either approve it or deny it. So I'm gonna bring that to them at the next meeting.
We just had the one individual, and he had a PowerPoint.
Yes, ma'am.
Did we not try to contact that individual?
Yes, there's several emails, and one email, he said the file is way too big, so he was going to work on it, and email after email, he's not responded.
We have a difficulty with these education courses, because if I don't get them approved, it penalizes the PI for going to a course that hasn't been approved, and they don't get credit for it. It's how it's supposed to work. So we work very diligently trying to get all the information that you want to see in order to make an intelligent decision about these courses. We don't meet again until when? January. January. So if this gentleman is going to be having a seminar, do I approve the individuals who attended for their continuing education? Poses a problem, but we'll address that if we see that's what's going to come down.
can you communicate with him and tell him that his course is not approved until we meet again in January?
Yes, he will be hearing from us.
Can you also communicate with him and advise him to work on his math a little bit with what she provided, yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The
Hours don't match up.
No, they do
Way
not.
off.
We saw that,
Correct.
but yes, but maybe the PowerPoint will make it clearer. I'm not sure, so we're going to hold off on that. But is he going to do a seminar, or was it a seminar attached to
They
that?
were online stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. I looked at it last night.
Penalize any private investigator who's coming up for a renewal at the end of the year and was planning on get approved. I'm not going to take the certificate. Okay. All right, sounds like you just postponed that education. All right, to the next meeting.
They also appointed Doug.
Oh, okay, and Doug Shanks was appointed to the Education Committee, or was nice enough to serve for us. We appreciate that. Put it to you like that. Thank you so much for doing that. Yes, he had a choice. I heard that. Okay, looks like let's move on down to the new business. Right now, and what this new business simply is your next year's meetings. We do these in advance. Please take these. Go ahead and try to get if you're from out of town, have to have a hotel, you need to be getting them now. Shauna works diligently going out and trying to make sure of what's happening in Nashville so you can get your hotels. If you're having trouble with getting a hotel room, let us know. We'll get a hold of some other programs, and they have hotels that are accepting board members, and we may be able to help you get into one. All right. For our new board members, for your hotels, I didn't even think, are either one of you from out of town?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you'll have some expenses to turn in. Shauna will take care of all that for you, but you must keep your receipts. And we'll need to have all your receipts, your hotels and food, whatever.
I sent y'all an email. Did y'all receive the email?
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks.
Charlie?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so what we show here is that we're going to meet January the 16th, April the 23rd, July the 23rd, and October the 15th. We've already talked to them. Okay. July the 16th is going to be in room 1B. August the 23rd is going to be room 1B. July, that was April the 20th, January, April, and then July is going to be in 1A, which is the bigger room. We used to always meet in the bigger room. We got moved over here when then we moved in for our new board members. We used to meet on Fridays. Now we meet on Thursdays, which we appreciate that. And October the 15th would be 1B. Have anything else, Mr. Chairman, until for I move into the unfinished business? Anything?
Not.
All right, I'm going to call it unfinished business. I have reached out to everyone that I know to reach out to, including our associations. I really appreciate everybody appearing today with our audience, people that wish to speak. As our commission members know, you have been in the red for 2 years. You're subject to a sunset. A lot of people do not understand what a sunset is. Well, it's simply deregulation. You could be subject to deregulation. They would just abolish the commission completely. There would be no more private investigators. Licensed private investigators, let's put it to you like that. Okay. I did ask commission members to please send me information. Let's just get some ideas. Let's just toss whatever idea comes to your mind. Let's throw it up on the board. I'm going to ask the audience to do give me their verbiage as well. I would like to, after this meeting or during this meeting, form a committee. It would be one board member. I will ask each one of the associations if they will appoint or their president, whoever would like to serve on that committee. And I will ask our polygraph examiner, since we only have one, to obviously be on that committee as well. That will be a public meeting also. We're going to take all these ideas that everybody's come up with and try to come up with a plan for a private investigation and polygraph commission. So no plan is silly, no idea, because I've got a few of them here, and I would like to thank Stuart for his information that he sent to us.
You're welcome.
I'm going to bring that down now. I'm going to go over a couple of things that I came up with, along with what Stuart sent me and what other people have told me. And some of these will require a law change, which is harder to do. Some of them will require a rule change, which is a whole lot easier for us to do. You gonna type it? I came up with removed 6 apprentices. A lot of you look at me.
What do you mean
You
by
do
that?
know a company can only have 6 apprentices. Why do we have a limit on how many apprentices? I don't know why that's there, but you could only have 6. That's what the law said. I believe that's in the actual law itself, 6 apprentices. The second one would be increased fees. Well, I can tell you right now, I cannot probably get anything passed on the Hill to increase your fees, but we'll take a look at that. If an individual is a private investigator and wants to go into business for itself, they have to have 2,000 hours of experience. Remove the 2,000 hours of requirement of experience. How do you get experience if you're not a private investigator or if you don't have a company that hires you as an apprentice? How do you get the 2,000? That's a year. How do you get that experience if nobody hires you and puts you on an apprentice, unless you're coming in from another state and you've already holding a license?
And that's a law change.
That's a law change. Another one is combined private investigation polygraph commission with another one of our programs. I'll explain to you that. Private Protective Services also encompasses the locksmith program. Those are 2 commissioner-run programs. That's going to take a little bit more of me explaining as we come back to that one. That'll have a little bit more explanation. What about dissolving the company affiliation? Just be a private investigator. Other states do that. Why do you have to be affiliated with the company?
Is that a rule change or law change?
That would be a law change, I believe.
Yeah, thought so.
Mm-hmm. Of the company affiliation. Pardon me, I'm sorry. I'm going to.
Meaning so that to be a licensed PI in the state of Tennessee, one need not also be a company or affiliated with a company.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, that is very similar to the security guard program. You can be a security guard, you can work, you have a license, and you can work for anybody you want to as long as that company is registered. It's a little bit different. Another one I came up with, reduce the age from 21 to 18. That would allow me to get into the trade schools, the high schools, like we do for the security guards. Some of you are not aware of that, but we do get into the seniors that are taking, what's the name of that course?
Criminal justice.
Criminal justice. They get a license through us as an unarmed security officer. When they go to college, they skip a semester or a quarter. It helps them with their. Also allows them to be working part-time while they're trying to continue with their education. You cannot do, I don't think I could do that with the age of 21, because most people should be graduated by the time they're 21 from high school anyway. Like I say, these weren't smart ideas, it's just ideas that we've came up with and we're throwing them up there. I want to, in order to do that, I'd like to get into the trade schools. We need to get into there and talk to them about getting into this profession. In order to do that, could we not offer free apprenticeship? Actually, it doesn't cost you anything to be an apprentice, but we would, I think, what I have been told, if I'm a private investigator and I have an apprentice with me, I'm charging my client for 2 people. We need to take a look at that, how you would be charging for that. Do we have any of our audience that would like to participate and give us their
Or do
ideas?
you want the commission to opine on that?
Okay. That's a good idea. Legal wants to know, perhaps you might want to go over some of this before we go to the audience participation. Okay, let me kind of explain this to you. This is your commission. This is your program. This, I don't know, maybe it's your livelihood. I mean, that's what I would think. I cannot make these decisions for you. I sit into meetings and I tell them, and I've given it to you, there's a 7-year study. There is a decline in private investigators. A lot of what investigators do now, from what I understand, I can do it at home on my computer. Now, I'm not going to go out here and do a fire and arcs, obviously, or a wreck, and I'm certainly not going to be looking in domestic cases, so there are certain specialties. I do understand that. And in order to do that, I'm told the private investigator likes to have that license that when they testify, if they have to testify. I could understand that as well. But you're going to have to, and the associations and the industry is going to have to give me something to go to the Hill to keep this program running. So I do need your participation. If we get called to the Hill, I will ask all commission members to come. You maybe get asked questions. This is your profession, not mine. I will ask the associations to please have a representative. We need to go up to the Hill and say, here we are. You either want this profession or you do not. So this is just some stuff I just threw off the top of the head.
So, as,
Yes, sir, please.
He's going to have to introduce himself.
If you're going to step up and speak, sir, then you need to sign the participant list.
Yeah, I have signed the
already did?
participant list
Okay.
before I realized I was going to be a participant, but,
Well, okay. Would you introduce yourself then?
yes, this is Patrick Riley, Spider Investigations. The commission was formed, as I recall, about 30-35 years ago?
Back in the early 90s, 91, 92, yes.
Yeah, as I understand it, the reason for the commission in the first place was to oversee the ethics and the responsibility of the individuals who are out there professing to be private investigators. Is that right? Isn't that correct?
Yes, sir, that's
And
one
continue to
reason.
have viable education for the investigators to make certain that they're giving the client a reasonable amount of service for their money. Why is that not enough for the Hill to understand that it's protecting the citizens of the state? That was the entire idea behind the commission. Why would the
But
Hill not
today
understand
you
that?
heard one complaint, so what is the complaint out there in the industry? Well, what's going on with the industry? Is this continuing education? You're here to protect the public. The commission's sitting here hearing very few cases, very few, might because of what they're turning in. The nature of this program, when I started anyway, Mr. Ryan, was I'm going to say a lady would meet a private investigator at Shoney's, and he'd write a receipt for $1,000 on a napkin because she didn't want her husband to know she was following it. Well, times have changed somewhat.
Why would that not happen again?
Well, it could, but we don't hear of it.
Well, that's because everyone is licensed.
Not necessarily, but anyway, yes, sir. You wouldn't hear it from a licensee unless the individual did not give the lady the report, then they would file a complaint. But you don't have any complaints.
Well,
You only heard one complaint.
My concern
this
would be if they're not licensed, if they don't have the credibility that comes through the commission, then it's going to go back the way it was before. There's going to be more sharks out there and more con people, and there will be complaints. And I would imagine that the Hill would want to understand that.
Yes, sir. That's one direction to look in. The other direction the Hill is looking is this commission must be self-supporting. You are not self-supporting because you're not getting anybody else into the industry. The industry, people are not renewing, or they're not doing their companies anymore. They're not apparently not hiring a lot of apprentices. We're just slowly diminishing. So we have to be able to sit there and say, what are we going to do to bring people into this industry? We know why we have the industry. We know what we're doing. We know who we're protecting, but something's happening to it.
Well, that's pretty obvious that the internet is a big factor in that. Can we go to the Hill and discuss that with the legislators?
Well, I'm sure you probably, yes, sir, whenever we get called up there, you will have your opportunity. But I'm sure I'm going to, and I want you to speak too, I'm sure I'm going to be probably having preliminary meetings before that, and I need to be able to say the commission has met, we have worked on this, we've had ideas, I've met with the associations, they've come into an actual meeting, we do have concern in the industry. And that's what I'm going to be required to do.
You know what you've got up here, I think we take a combination of some of this stuff, we can put something together that will work, and I think will reach them. The problem on the Hill, when you go up there, they're not emotional, they don't feel the compassion that we have. You might have one or two up there, but they're going to look at the bottom line. And that one time we went up there before, they were very cut and dry.
We got to start recruiting people, basically, is the bottom line for it.
Well, we need to come up with a plan that we all agree on, that we can go up there like Cody's trying to do, that's comprehensive, that will work and keep this commission going, keep what we're all wanting to do. It's going to be a blending of some of these things, but changing the law is going to be difficult up there. Am I right? I mean, we can talk about we want to do this and do that, but unless those legislatures want to change those laws up there, we're going to have a hard time.
As far as recruiting is concerned, the only things that an awful lot of my background has been in media, and media really works. Of course, it takes money unless you can get some volunteers or you get paid to do it. But people are having
Are you suggesting media outreach?
Yeah, media outreach in all kinds of different ways. You could, for example, develop a television commercial. Everybody likes the crime dramas on TV. Everybody likes them. So there is, an emotional excitement about the business.
I agree, but who's going to pay for it?
What's that?
Who's going to pay for it?
Well, that's exactly.
We're underwater.
That's exactly the concern.
We've talked in the past, trying to blend all three associations from West Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, and East Tennessee. That would give us a comprehensive lobbying group. But when we're still splintered, we have a problem.
I suggested on a couple of occasions in the past, for example, a radio program which could.
I don't have time to come up here. Yeah.
Yep.
There's already a blog.
Yeah.
Well, there's blogs, but I mean, blogs reach kind of a minimal audience.
It's a video blog. It's already one of those.
Okay, that's what, so we threw the media up there, yes, sir. We threw up the internet, two more ideas. Yes, we even have, one of our own had even thought about a podcast, but there are legal problems with the podcast that we would have. So I didn't throw podcast up there. There may be something we can do with our media media person. We might get I could work out a 2-minute segment. Then I have to think you're telling me to get the TV stations to run that or put it in the newspaper. We don't want to sound like we're advertising, but talk about our profession. Is that what you're talking about, Mr. Riley?
Yeah, I mean, if you could put it in the context, for example, of talk radio, there's a number of people who are buying time on radio stations, putting on hour broadcasts in order to increase their business. There's lawyers, there are doctors, there are people who are in the roofing industry. These places have reasonably large audiences, and it's a way to recruit more business. If you get your private investigators calling up, having people call up with their problems and kind of develop a sense of excitement about what we do, and of course promote individual businesses along the way, you might even be able to sell advertising on it. And
well, who
allow it to be
listens?
self-sustaining.
Is an 18-year-old listening to that? Is a 20-year-old listening? Maybe that. It might be. I mean, I don't listen to talk radio.
It depends on what the format.
Yeah,
Depends what the
we
format
got
is,
to
what
get
you're talking
into the right area. I don't want to say younger people. I don't mean that, because anybody can get into this profession. But we got to hit that right area.
Those are my suggestions. Thanks for the
you,
opportunity.
Pat.
One
Yes,
question
yes.
for you. Sir,
Pat, he has a question. Doug,
my question, you have your own company, correct?
Yes.
How many private investigators do you employ?
I am the sole employee.
Why?
We have people come to us from time to time, and they've proven to be undependable in some cases. We had someone who was supposed to show up for one of our continuing professional education meetings a couple of years ago in Memphis, and she didn't bother to show up, and I'd worked with her for about 2 years on various surveillances. I just had a woman come to me 2 or 3 weeks ago, and she said that she wanted to be covered by a company license. She used to be a reporter for the National Enquirer, good photographer, knew how to do pretext and that sort of thing. She came on one surveillance, and she was very impressed. She took a bunch of my brochures. She said she was going to talk to some lawyers, see if she could get us some more business, and I can't get her on the phone again. So I guess I'm suffering from the same kind of apathy as everyone else.
Are you willing to hire?
Sure, absolutely. If I find some qualified people who are willing to work.
Because they get applications, and we have people needing affiliations, and I guess make a list of companies that will take and have it where you all can just refer a list out.
That's right. Well, that's great. That's a good, yeah, if we can get a reference list, if we have companies in their audience, commission members, whatever, anyone who's willing to hire, yes, we do. Now, I have to be careful with that. I cannot recommend one PI company over the other. I don't recommend one guard company over another, but I do give them at least 3.
Or there
Then
could be a
they can
list
choose whatever.
online.
Yeah, or we can set up something. I'm going, well, here is this list. You call whomever.
And that costs-
What I'm hearing is
That costs nothing.
what I'm hearing is the idea that the commission staff could put together like an ancillary portion to the website indicating PI and Polygraph companies who would be willing to hire.
Well, it does, probably all your PI companies have a website, don't you? Do you have something, a majority of them may, do you have something that you could go, this section here for hire, or something for hire, or employment, or however you want to word that? Yeah.
I also have a podcast, which.
Oh, okay, you have a podcast, okay. All right.
Still not people banging on the door saying, I want to be a PI.
This is exactly our problem. Nobody's banging at your door to be a PI.
They're banging at your all's door trying to get their,
I'm not even
License.
getting applications.
You're not-
Very few applications.
because
So-
what I noticed and looking, in 2009, the law in July came out with the 2,000 hours. It stayed level, it didn't increase, and then all of a sudden it started dipping. Basically, and you've said this before, people are getting older and they're retiring, and newer people cannot get in because of the 2,000 hours. I have my own company, I don't want the liability of hiring somebody under me and dealing with all of that. So that's the issue. To me, the 2,000 hours should go away, but it's a law change. I don't know if it could be repealed or something, or that's just the 2,000 hours, number 6 on the TCA.
Okay, let me clarify that, Commissioner Shanks. That is for you to become a company, not to go to work as a PI. That is for an individual who wants to start their own company. They have to have 2,000 hours, which is a year of experience.
Right, but if that individual
They want to be
he could have his own company.
Sole practitioner, just
Yeah,
like Pat is, yes,
right.
sir. But they have to have the 2,000 hours. They're either going to come to work for you or someone, get those, and then go over and start their own company, or come straight in. You can be a PI, pass the exam, pass all the background check, pay the fee, and then you have to have a company affiliation. You have to start your own company. That's why I said up there, perhaps some other states don't have that company affiliation. That might be something we want to look at. You
That
wanna
is
get
where
people-
I'm leaning as far as stopping that.
I have not done a lot of research to determine if we no longer have companies, what the impact would be. I have not gotten that far with it. I believe, I looked at the paper, and there's only about 17 or 19 sole practitioners. So that's telling me out of that 486 or 500 companies that we have, that there are 2 or more investigators already there. But you only have 3 companies that have apprentices, and there's only 7 apprentices. I think I wrote all that down. Okay, yeah. We got 7 apprentices, and it's 4 companies. They're under their affiliation. Right now, we're holding at 1,003 private investigators, 486 companies. Out of that, you have 3 companies that have branches, and you have 7 apprentices. It doesn't sound like, when you go back and look, you might have had 1,020. It doesn't look like much, but what you're doing, you're losing 2, 3, 5, might be gaining 1, then you're going to lose 2 or more. It's slowly diminishing. Okay, does there anybody else somebody in the audience wanted to come up? Sir. Whoever. And then just introduce yourself,
Yes,
please.
ma'am. My name is David Barella. I'm the owner of Accredited Investigative Services out of Lebanon, Tennessee.
What was your last name, sir?
Barella.
If you would spell it for them.
Barela. Okay. I've had the honor to meet Mr. Bain at the TALPI meeting and talked to him, and I talked to Mr. Johnny Lawrence over here about the dilemma that the commission is in, or the PI commission is in. And there's a couple of things that I need to kind of throw out in the deal. I was in the transportation business after a short stint in the military, made a short stint in the transportation business, and hiring a PI is like hiring a truck driver. A lot of these truck drivers would come into the company and they thought that in order to make any money they had to own a truck. And a lot of times PIs come into into the commission and they think that the only way they're going to make any money is by having their own company. The problem is that you can't go out there and just throw a shingle on a wall and say, I'm a private investigator, and you have a line of people show up at your doorstep wanting your services. I've been in this business going on, 18 years, I guess, when I started back in 2001. First year I worked, when I had my own company, I worked 4 cases in the entire year. Second year, I think I had 10. But I had another job. So I was kind of moonlighting as a PI while I kept my job. I mean, at this point in the game, I'm handling about 400 cases a year. But it took me a long time. And I have 4 other investigators that work for me, in this company. And I'm looking for new ones because I need the help. We do a lot of criminal defense work. We do a lot of, which is in the state and in the federal venue. So we stay pretty busy. Right now I'm running 3 murder cases that I'm trying to run. And I definitely need some help. Although I got qualified people working for me, there's still a lot of stuff going on. So the misconception is that you have to own a company to make any money. And that's not exactly true. I see some of the stuff going on the board up here about reducing it from 21 to 18 years old. I wouldn't hire anybody that was 18 years old. There's no way in the world that I would put somebody to work for me even as an apprentice. I don't really have the time to put on an apprentice. But dropping it to 18 years old I don't think it's a good idea. And as far as dissolving the company affiliation, you have a lot of people that want to come to the business, just like this gentleman was talking about, this lady that worked for him for the Enquirer. They have no experience at all as far as the business is concerned. I could not hire somebody like that. I look for retired police officers or investigators, not just police officers, as most of us know in here, that even if you are a police officer, you don't have the experience to run an investigation. And I found that out the hard way, like most of us did. So some of these things are good, some of these. One of the things that I really liked was the fact of the commission of some manner putting out a list to the companies that say, hey, these guys are applying for a job, these guys are applied for a license, they're looking for somebody to go to work for. And then let us decide whether we can go ahead and hire them or not as company owners. Those things are, a lot of it, we do a lot of work with TALPI, this organization. Maybe you guys can release a list of investigators to organizations like TALPI or some of these other PI groups that are out there in that general area, so in their region, so that they can contact owners, company owners in that area and say, hey, I got XYZ here looking for a job. Are you interested in doing this?
Mr. Burrell, if I can ask you mentioned that you would not hire an individual who was 18. If I can just ask you for the record, why?
For one, the experience. I'm looking for experienced investigators. At the age of 18, how much experience would they have? So it would be detrimental to, for us. A simple case like this gentleman was talking about a while ago, where somebody released information to the spouse of the other one.
How do we attract people then? Because they're talking about going to the trade school and reaching them at 18. How do we get there then? Because we're not getting them now at 21 coming and applying for jobs. We're not doing it. The applications are not there.
You know, there's a lot of organizations, and I'd have to do some research on this, but there's organizations for retired police officers, and I'm looking at it through my glasses, which are different than everybody else's. But there's organizations out there that we can go and talk to them. Hey, the military, I mean, I would hire a CID agent in a heartbeat, being the fact that I'm a former CID agent. I wouldn't have a problem hiring a retired CID agent. Go to Fort Campbell. During when they're getting ready to get out of the military, they have this hiring fairs, job fairs, or whatever they call them. You know, that would be an angle. Go there. I mean, go to the universities that have job fairs as well, and put our industry out there.
Art, let me ask you this, why don't TALPI and some of the other associations do that, have job fairs? We can utilize our resources.
That's who's going to have to step up.
Yeah.
And do. Sometimes my hands are going to be tied as to what I can do.
As commissioners, we're tied.
If there's going to be a job fair and the person that's over the job fair does a speaker request or wants me to have a booth or something of that nature, yes, we can
Sign me up.
Yeah, we can do that. We used to have those particular job fairs. I do feel that the military is an area that we need to get into, and I don't know how to do that. So if we have somebody who has these contacts, I would love to hear and be able to make those contacts.
I can make a couple phone calls.
Oh, that'd be great. I mean, if they have 50 people that are getting ready to retire and they're going to look into different professions, I'd be willing to go. Maybe take a private investigator with me because it's your profession. I can tell them about the laws and the rules and how much it's going to cost, stuff like that, and you can tell them about what to expect in the profession and what their job would be. Yes, sir, I'm willing to do that. But I would need help to do that.
One of the other things, and this is where you guys come to the table. You know, we had the AOC at the TALPI meeting the other day. Their going rate is $50 an hour and 47 cents a mile. I mean, it's crazy for somebody to want to work staycation. I mean, we work them because we get a bunch of them, but it's still a kick in the butt when you're getting paid $50 an hour, especially for somebody that's got an education and has got, I mean, we spend a lot of time and money and effort and trying to stay straight and do everything the way we're supposed to do it. We have a big investment in our own companies, equipment, as far as, and investigators, and to deal with $50 an hour and 47 cents a mile. You know, if you guys from the commission could go to the Hill or wherever you need to go and see about getting that rate changed, you know, and we apply for funding through the judges approve X amount, it gets to the commission, or gets to the AOC, and they cut it back. Yes, sir.
In your knowledge, how long has that hourly rate been in place?
I've been in this business 18 years, and it's still there.
You've been licensed 18 years?
Yeah, since
it was 50
October of 2001.
It was $50 an hour 18 years ago?
$50 an hour and
It
47
was
cents
$50 when I started working, and it has never changed.
And that's only a few years ago for you.
Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you. Since I think it was 93, actually. And that's something that we have addressed. All commissions, all boards have addressed that $50, and yes, that would be a law change.
But
And that would be through.
I don't know if you realize
That'd be
this.
through F&A, not through us. It would have
But
to be.
AOC just increased the attorney's fees from $40 an hour to $50 an hour.
Oh, I know, it
So-
is ridiculous.
So before they'll increase the investigator fee up, I'd say the attorneys would be,
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I have attorneys tell me more, it says, you make more than I do.
yes, we
And
do.
we giggle, but, you know, it is a fact, you know.
All right, sir, I appreciate that.
Thank you
If
for
you would get
allowing
with
me to
me with
speak
any
today.
ideas that you have, I would certainly appreciate that.
Thank you, ma'am.
There's someone else, Mr. Stanbeck, you wanted to speak?
I just want to make an observation.
All right.
From what I've heard here. So I think on the subject of internet and PI, I'm speaking on the PI behalf, and then I'm going to comment on the polygraph. We need to be real careful about the internet. It's sort of like a two-edged sword. The internet has made things easier, but it's made things complicated. And what I found as a PI is that between the dark web and open source intelligence and misinformation and information protection and the laws that govern information, the board really relies on the PIs to do the right thing. And so, let's talk about a couple of those. One is, protecting somebody's information when we get it off of a proprietary website and getting it to that person. Going to the right websites, because there's a lot of misinformation out there about people. So I just want to make sure we're being real careful of loosely using the word. It's made life easier, and we don't need PIs because of the internet. I take exception to that, and I'm just throwing that out to the board. The other comment I have is on the polygraph. If sunset is in the cards for the board, originally I was not an advocate of the internship because of the pain in the butt of it, but now that I'm into it, and recognizing that I've learned a lot from the internship, and polygraph being a practice, I am completely an advocate of the internship, of the polygraph. Careful about abolishing that as part of the sunset process. And so I would, as part of living it right now, I would advocate that we need to sustain that. The other comment to that would be is that other states who don't have it, I'm often hear that there are a lot of bad polygraph examiners out there, and I attribute that because they were absent of.
Just walk away. If I can ask, as an intern, what did you find to be the greatest barriers to you entering the industry?
That is an excellent question. You're probably going to anticipate my answer.
I'm ready.
Does it have anything to do with 6 months?
No, sir.
No.
It has to do with finding a sponsor.
Yep.
Ah.
And I hinted that at the beginning of my presentation when I said that I was a little behind, and my other hint was I was not law enforcement, so I don't have the connections that other folks would have. And so for me to claw and plead for an intern sponsor was really tough. Steve Duncan stepped up to be my first sponsor. He's the president of APA. He recognized the research I was doing and everything I was doing, and he wanted a proctoring of my polygraphs, which was extremely beneficial. But I think the way things are set up, it's probably by design. If we could just, other polygraph examiners to be a little bit more encouraged, perhaps, of sponsors. I don't think there's any changes that need to be made there. I think a little bit more. Comment to that? Oops.
Yeah, in speaking to the internship itself and sponsorship particularly, I come from a law enforcement background. I do not come from a private background accepting clients as a private examiner, so I can't speak to that. I wouldn't have a problem in the world being your sponsor. The problem lies with state law that protects open cases, criminal cases.
Right.
And any time a law enforcement employed examiner is going to conduct an internship, the person that they are interning must also possess law enforcement credentials and understand applicable state law that says this is an active open investigation that's protected by certain laws restricting access to it. And therein lies the dilemma. It's another, and that is law, not rule. From what hour I've been on this commission, that is law. That is not, and it is a topic that I mentioned during the vetting process for this position. It's a topic that I've often had discussions with people that contact me. I would like you to sponsor me, and that's just the first words out of my mouth. I don't have a problem in the world sponsoring anybody, but I do have a problem getting them into criminal tests. That's where the problem lies.
Completely understood.
Yeah.
So there's kind of two layers here. One is, to me, let's keep it, and then the other one is how do we overcome the barriers of intern sponsorship. So, in summary.
And that may be something as simple as a waiver, that an intern that is not law enforcement signs a waiver that says, I shall not reveal information. Again, that goes to law, not rule. But it may be something that simple, but it would still have to be approved because there's some pretty strict TCA codes protecting open criminal investigations.
Thank you.
I'm not on the list, but
You will, okay, you can get on the list. There's still time to get on the
But it's
list.
going to be real quick.
Anybody that wishes to speak can still get on the list. This is a public meeting.
My name is Petra Barella. I'm Dave Barella's wife. And I just wanted to add something real quick. I didn't become a private investigator till 2006. But what I did for our company was I did a market analysis and to find out what is the need and what is our niche. And so I made several phone calls because we didn't even know how much to charge. And as simple as that, we didn't know how to charge for domestics, state, federal. We were totally naive as to how much. So my point is, when they become private investigators, an individual that becomes a private investigator, they do not know what they're getting into. And I called, I don't know how many private investigative companies to find out and get some information. 5 people answered their phone. Okay? And that was in 2001. Okay? 5 people answered their phone, and I told Dave, I don't think it's going to be that hard. Plus, we're a bilingual company. So that was the other niche that we had. And I think that because of what we cater to is criminal cases, we're looking for that individual that is not just a police officer, but a detective that knows how to, run a case. And that's why it's really difficult for an 18-year-old for us to hire one. Okay, that's our problem. Now, we are looking for people to hire. And one of the things that I told Dave, aside from the military, we also have law enforcement where a lot of detectives retire, and they retire young. To us, they're young. Anyway, they're in their 40s or whatever because they've been in it for so long. But law enforcement, military, those are the people that we need. And 2 out of all the investigators that are already licensed, how many are active? Maybe they just don't want to do it because they don't want to pay the fees, or they're not getting the work. We have the work. We need help. So for the commission to be dissolved and private investigators, that would be detrimental for us. We need our licenses.
Well, how many apprentices do you have?
We don't want any apprentices. We don't have time for apprentices.
How can you get somebody in the industry if you don't train them?
Well, we do train them in our manner of what we're looking for.
So specific to your
So you make
Yeah,
up
specific to our company, but we need the experienced individuals because we do not have time to teach them how to investigate.
So you're saying, in effect, your pool of talent is law enforcement retirees and military people.
But those are the people that can only qualify to come in and get their license now, right?
No, ma'am,
No,
anybody
no,
can
no,
qualify to get a license.
But they'd have to come in as an apprentice.
No.
Nope.
No?
I'd like to quote something in the rules. Actually, law 6226-206, subparagraph A, subparagraph 6, it says, possess or employ at least one person who possesses at least 2,000 hours, here it comes, of compensated, verifiable investigative experience, and here's the kick, satisfactory to the commission. Or, there's an or, 1 year of applicable related experience or education in a related area of study. That's not 2,000 hours. Specifically, it is compensated, verifiable education, training, and skill set that's satisfactory to the commission.
Yeah, that's to start their own company.
Agreed, but that's...
But
you
she's
know,
talking about working for her company.
I understand that. I'm just trying to say that it's...
Well, there's a two.
there's-
Yeah.
That
The one
2,000
at the
hours is
is-
not, you know,
Right, but that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm gonna talk
Not too fast, we have a reporter.
My name is Johnny Lawrence. I am currently an investigator for Barry Waltz Investigations, and we are solely criminal investigations. A little bit about me. I was a Nashville Metropolitan Police Officer from 1981 to 2012 when I retired. I am an expert in crime scene reconstruction and bloodstain interpretation. I have been expert witness in 6 different counties in Tennessee. When I first got into this, I was prodded into it by attorneys to come in and work death investigations, which is my specialty, and then I was directed toward the AOC. I was told I had to have a PI license to do that unless I was working for a specific attorney. From my understanding, if you work for an attorney firm, and only one attorney firm, you don't have to have any license, even though you do basically the same thing we do, which is, I don't understand that. 2013, I started my own company. By 2015, I was ready to give it up. Even though I had a specialty, my cases was low. But when I was out in the field doing these cases through AOC, I'd come in at 7 o'clock at night, and then I had 4 hours of business to take care of every day. So I was trying to juggle it, and I retired in 2012. Now, when I first started my business, I, like Mr. Barella, was directing traffic for AT&T. That was my full-time job when I retired. I was doing PI work part-time. In 2017, Rick Berry of Barry Waltz asked me to come join his firm, and I jumped on it. That way I could close my business, and I didn't have to worry about that part, and I could concentrate on my work. Right now, we are currently staffed with 6 investigators. Therefore, we cannot hire nobody else. We need people. We're locked in. We handle cases in a 200-mile radius of Davidson County. Up in Kentucky, some of our PIs have Kentucky license, so they travel back and forth. You talk about hiring 18 to 21-year-old. Why not? Think about it. Maybe not doing what I'm doing, but how many investigators are required to go pull records, go pull traffic accident reports? These are people fresh out of high school and college that are interested, that could do the footwork of getting records and never have to come into contact with the public. They're learning how to pull records and become an investigator.
Excellent point. Excellent point. They can do a lot of things.
Exactly, they can do it, but I can't answer for Mr. Berry. He owns his company, and I just learned of this. But if he had 6 full-time investigators and he had 2 or 3 18, 19, 20-year-olds fresh out of college that can go pull reports that we have to do now, then it frees us up to do the other work.
You keep saying 6. Why do you have a cap at 6?
I believe it's locked in, isn't it?
No.
Okay, we need to take stop for just a second here and take a look at this. It goes from 0 to 1, which is the sole practitioner. Then you pay from 2 to 5. Then the price goes up for 6 or more. Okay, to 1,000. So if you have 15 investigators, you're going to pay $1,000 when your renewal comes up. The 6 is hung on the apprentice. You can only have 6 apprentices.
How many companies have 6 apprentices?
I just told you, we only have 4 companies that have apprentices, and there's only 7 apprentices.
Right, so there are no companies that have 6 apprentices?
Correct. That's what you're saying.
So that's not an issue, really.
No, so that's, I think it's a little confusing.
Okay, that's where I was
there.
getting confused. We
Okay.
have 6 full-time investigators.
Well, you can, okay, you're paying,
you
that
won't.
company now, when it comes up for renewal, will pay the $1,000, if I'm correct. If you hire 20 more people, they're going to pay the same amount. You're not being penalized for how many you have, so that's kind of confusing. But why do we have that limit on there? I was going to throw that out too. You have a company. Well, what do we care if you have 2 people or 15 people? You paid. I'm going to say $300. Everybody pays it, whether you're a sole or whether you got a whole bunch. Why do we have?
Just stay for the record, that's a law change.
We didn't make
That's
that
a law
rule.
change. I know we didn't. That's what we're doing. We're just throwing all this. This
Yeah.
conversation is just throwing out everything we can throw out here.
Well, the part about the 18 to 20, of course, they're not going to get paid the same as an investigator, but it's getting their feet in the door. They're learning how to do investigation without actually doing the work. In my job capacity, I go out to Nashville Police Department's Record Division, other cities, and I'm pulling reports. Whenever I go to Nashville, there's at least 3 people in there going through traffic accident reports. Those are investigators. I don't know if they're licensed or not.
Yeah, so they have to be. You cannot pull them now. They have determined in Davidson County. I don't know about your other counties. They have locked you in to being private investigators.
That helps. And those people, basically, their job is just sitting there going through traffic accident reports, and they're there all day long. That's the same type of work an 18, 19, 20-year-old can do. He might not have criminal investigations, surveillance investigations, but he can go with the numbers and reports and pull reports and get what you need. So there's a spot for them, but how many companies have the finances and the ability to hire them? Most of our work comes from the AOC, and there's a lot of requirements on AOC, and somebody that does not have any investigative experience does not need to be doing AOC, because you can get yourself in a deep liability. Being an investigator, working through AOC, I go to the prisons and I go to the jails. I have to show my license when I go. You just can't walk in there. So your license is needed to show you are an investigator, and you have to let them know what attorney you're working for. One thing I forgot to mention, I am currently the chairman of TALPI here in Middle Tennessee. There's 3 organizations in Tennessee, and we are in the process of trying to join everybody together and try to get a networking going. We have a new website up. It's slow because I'm trying to do that and my full-time job and run TALPI. We're trying to get more people to help us get the website up and going. We've had a lot of good comments on it since it's been going. We're going to have blogs on it. We're going to have forums on it. And we're going to put links on there so new people that are searching for private investigations, how to do it and things like that, they can click the links and kind of learn. Right now, when they get their license, they go out in the field, they say, okay, I'm waiting on the phone call. It ain't coming. My first year, I had 3, I think, cases. I was flagging for AT&T. As far as AOC work, I get asked all the time, how do you get into AOC? I was in Metro for 32 and a half years. Most of the attorneys in Davidson County already knew me. They knew the type of work I did, and I've already testified in hundreds and hundreds of cases. So they knew the type of investigations I did and how I testify. That's what they're looking for. Most of these attorneys are only by themselves. They need an investigator to come in and do all the footwork for them, but they don't need anybody that has no experience. One case in point is I have recently been doing federal work, and I personally don't like federal court, but I'm doing it. And in the past 2 or 3 years, they've had large-scale arrest. I think there was one gang unit, there was like 20 or 30 defendants. There's some out of Clarksville with 16, 18 defendants. Each one of these defendants had an attorney and needed an investigator. Davidson County didn't have them. Surrounding counties didn't have them. Several investigators were recruited from out of state, some as far as New Jersey, to come in and do the PI work, the AOC type work. So we need the people, the older people like me and others. We've already done a full career. We're doing this until we get to our Social Security time, and then we're going to slowly start fading out, which is what a lot of people have already done. Who's going to take their spots? Where are they going to get the training? 2,000 hours is a lot of hours, but I think it is necessary for AOC type work. Is it necessary to do a skip trace? Is it necessary to pull reports? Maybe a couple 100 hours, get their footwork, but for these people that are not affiliated with a big company, where do they go to get these hours? What about somebody, and I can't do it, but what about in-state, in person and not online, once a year doing a 40-hour course on PI work. Have people volunteer to come in and do the classes and let these inexperienced people get their hours showing how to do this stuff. I just taught a class about locating people, skip tracing. I showed examples of people messing up doing this, giving information out to someone who was actually stalking someone, and they go and kill the person. You've got to be careful with what information you release and who you release it to, and I recommend everybody doing that to do a background skip trace on their client and include it into their cost, because the liability is going to come back. Say you got a 22-year-old fresh out of college, I got my PI license, I'm going to do a skip trace, you give it to the guy, and it turns out to be the son of Sam. He's tracking these people, and you just gave him information for his next victim. It's going to devastate the person doing it. It's going to financially ruin them. Their business is going to be history. So you've got to slowly, it's like a stepping stone. You've got to slowly increase into it, but where do you go to increase? Law enforcement are a lot of the people involved in this, insurance adjusters, you've got military. A lot of people in the military are going to be getting out. A lot of MPs, criminal investigators. They don't know what they're going to do. Why not suggest it to them? At least do it for a couple of years. But some of the things we talked about, I wanted to go over. The advertising for apprentices, it comes down to funding, basically. If you get an apprentice, are you going to pay them or are you just going to let them work for free? Is that fair? So you got to come up with the funding somehow. Our company is AOC, so ours is based off hours worked, and we have to document each thing. Now, pulling records, you can do that because you're taking the time to do it, but it frees up the investigator to actually do the criminal part of it. The podcast, there's several PIs out there now that's got podcasts. I've never watched them. I've heard some of them are pretty good. There's actually 2 women, I don't even think they're investigators, that's on Facebook that talks about cold cases throughout Nashville. They get input. They've got a large following. These are people that watch CSI, Dateline and stuff that want to get in there and solve these puzzles. Talk about advertising, that's the best place to go. Those kind of things, say, hey, I'm such and such with this company. I'm actually looking for people to do footwork. Who's
Sounds
interested?
like a job for an association to contact that
Exactly.
entity.
And our plans are to eventually branch to that, but it's slow moving right now because it's me basically running the whole website. My term ends in December. I'm not running for chairman again, but I'm going to stay with the website to try to push it up. We're going to get people to do podcasts and blogs and stuff on the website. Some of it's going to be for everyone that comes to the website, but the majority of it is for members only. Last year we had 46 members, I believe. As of today, we've got 53. 53 members just in Talpi. So it's growing a little bit, but the way we did that, we did a mass email to people with license to let them know about us. That's the only, we had one person complain about us. How'd you get my email? I'm talking about gave me up and down. I said,
Oh, yeah. I got that call too.
Say, good day, sir. We're just letting you know we had a CE conference coming up and you're welcome to come. That's what that was about. A lot of these PI people don't know we exist. If you Google private investigator in Tennessee, you get advertisements.
Yes, sir, but you're talking people who are already licensed.
Correct.
And what I would like
But how
to
do they
see,
find out about us?
that's right.
Yeah.
And what I would like to see again, we used to years ago, all 3 of the associations was one association. You got more power with numbers. What's wrong with combining all 3 of these associations into one and have numbers? Have some numbers to go up to the hill
We've
with.
been talking about that for 15 years.
I had a suggestion last month from an investigator out of Memphis, wanting to know about doing roundtable meetings. We're discussing it right now about doing East Tennessee, West Tennessee, going and meeting these people, having dinner and talk us over and let them know what we have to offer.
We had the meeting, and you did a kind of a roundtable on the new system as far as registration and all that.
Well, who came?
And who came? Nobody. I went to the one in Memphis. Robin Brewer was there with one of her colleagues and myself, and they were the only PIs from West Tennessee and Memphis that showed up. And that's the problem we have, is this apathy we have. We want to, if we can combine, like we're talking about, we've been saying, I know for 15 years, all we've done is talk. Somebody needs to get the bull by the horn and say, reach out to these over here, these over here, and let's sit down and talk and forget our differences, because divided, we're going to fall apart. We're not going to do what we need to do, communication, and our lifeline is getting new PIs. That's our lifeline.
We just recently had our conference. 19 people that's not even a member of TALPI came. 19.
Were they private investigators?
They were private investigators.
Okay.
They found out about us.
Right.
That's where it was. We
Because
sent out
the
email.
association took the time to contact them.
We sent
Right.
the email to all non-members and members.
Right.
19 people signed up and came to our conference. They've made a lot of new friends. 11 of those have already signed up with TALPI. So the word is getting out, but you have to get out here and give the word.
We all need to get together. I don't know how you do it. Anyway, like I said, we'll be here next year doing the same thing.
TALPI
We
is
don't.
all for combining all three, not into one group, but to work together like brothers and share information. Networking is what I like to call it. Share information. If you've got somebody in East Tennessee needs something done in Middle Tennessee, you've got people you can call. I hear complaints, well, they're going to take my work away from me. They're not going to take your work.
Not if you're good.
If you're good doing your work, they're going to continue using, but you've got to give these younger people a chance. And
All
most
right.
of these things are exactly what we need.
Thank you, I really appreciate that. Is there, yes, ma'am, I know you've been waiting.
I'm Honey Hargrove, licensed private I'm sorry? Honey Hargrove, Beast Investigations, licensed private investigator since 2008. A lot of these people on this board have been my mentors. Thank you. Becoming a PI from the floral industry, I'm a flower child. My family, nobody helped me until Nancy Hughes. Nancy, what do I need? How do I do this? She said, you need to come to the TALPI meetings, first of all, and you need to meet Norma Tillman. I did. I met Walt Valentine. I met a lot of people who did this and said, come join us. I did. I came to the meetings before I got my PI license. And in that process, I didn't have background like you guys do, but I had a burn in this heart to do it because I caught 2 cheating husbands. And I knew what I was doing.
Oh, you got some experience there.
Yeah, I hope you had a lot, hired somebody to help you do that.
Actually, I did hire somebody. I had a PI, and I hired him.
We know, honey.
And I worked with him. He didn't want me to work with him, but I did. And I caught the guys. Okay, and I did bug a phone once or twice. But anyway.
We don't need the details, honey.
The point is, that was before I became a PI. I had to learn. I had to learn, and you guys taught me. But when you put the auspices of 2,000 hours to have your own business, that took it away from people like myself who can't get the sponsorship to help you. And what I learned from Nancy was you get your PI license and your PI company license, and you're in, and then you get help learning. You join TALPI. I'm a part of TALPI. You become friends with people. You ask them to help you and ask them to train you. When you put that 2,000 hours on, and a lot of us fought it, and a lot of people were behind the scenes fighting to keep it and make it happen, we started losing the opportunity for people like myself who didn't have law enforcement background to come into the industry to help grow the industry. I think that we've done ourselves a disservice, and I think that we need to remove it. I don't have a problem with AOC having hours documented for that, but I don't think it needs to go through the PI Commission to do that. I think it needs to go through AOC to confirm that information. Stan Marler was a big AOC guy, and you know, he tried to get me into that, and I said, I don't want to be working with all these people. Different, and I'm still doing something different. But the thing of it is, when you demand a 2,000 hour, just if you got to have a PI company, that 2,000 hours just isn't really kind of fair to people who want to get started, who don't mind going the extra mile to work with people like Stuart Bain, Walt Valentine, David Brown, Doug Shanks, Charlie Bradley. And I don't know you, Mr. Russo, but hello. And it's nice to meet you, Kendall. I know the rest of these fellas. But the thing of it is that we have the opportunity to grow our industry, but we've chokeholded it to the point to where it can't grow. Thank you for your
I understand the 2,000-hour concept. What we were trying to do, prior to me getting on here, was to tighten things up to make it more professional. But I think we shot ourselves in the foot when we did that. That's the reason we have the commission, is to screen unscrupulous, unlicensed, bad PI work. That's the reason we sit here. We have the legal board right here to screen the complaints, investigate them, and bring them to us. That's what we're here for. So I think that 2,000 hours, I know it's a law change. I'm adamant that's got to go right away. And I think you will find then a lot more applications. People want to be solo practitioners. That's fine. We have the commission. We'll have more applications, more revenue, and let the cycle we've already got created here work. Right now we're stagnant, and that I've had so many people call me up and complain. Kids in high school that looked into being a private investigator want to be a solo, and 2,000 hours scares the crap out of them because they can't get qualified. I think I don't know how we initiate that, but it's my strong suggestion. The first thing we do is make that go away the best way we can.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Let me explain also, there has been a new TV show with a young lady that's being a PI or going out there learning to be. Anytime that happens, we do get interest in the industry. So we have received phone calls. So what I have to tell these individuals, you either become a private investigator and start your own company, or you become a private investigator and you work for a licensed private investigation company. And that was the next question, or next statement that was made. I've already called around and I couldn't find anybody to hire me. There's a misconception that you have to be an apprentice. You do not have to be an apprentice. There's two ways to get into the industry, and that is to become the private investigator and be affiliated with the company, or become an apprentice with the company and then upgrade to a private investigator when you finish your 6 months apprenticeship. That's the only way to do it. So there's been a little bit of interest, but no one to hire. But maybe with this meeting that we're having, if I can have companies tell me, yes, we are looking to hire someone, and maybe they can form a list. Associations can have a list of companies for hire, and I can say, here's the 3 associations here called whomever, and these are the companies that might be willing to hire you. That is something I'm going to need.
Which brings to me the question that I wrote down a few minutes ago. When, if ever, have we asked you to survey all currently licensed PI companies in the state, asking them if they're ready to hire?
We haven't done that, but don't know if I can actually do that as director of the commission. The associations probably can do that.
Perhaps the associations could do that.
Yes, so they can survey. There's some areas I got to be real careful stepping into. PIs for hire is not my job.
You can provide the 3 associations. You can provide the 3 associations with a list of the companies and their phone number and email.
Can I
Okay.
say one thing? I'm sorry. I was going to say that there might be a list of things.
A few things. One is to collectively get together and start discussing issues, notwithstanding Mr. Brown with very encouragement by the board. And then, this other thing of taking a poll of the outlook of that. And maybe there's some other things about, asking the associations to come up with ideas to stimulate the industry. So I'm just advocating there's a summary of things that the board could push back to the association.
Is there a way, or is it possible, the 2,000-hour requirement for business, can it be kind of staggered? Like, if you're going to do full-blown criminal investigations where that's what your sole purpose is, yes, you need 2,000 hours. But if you're just going to go pull reports, go to an intersection and take photographs for an attorney or something, what about dropping the hours, kind of like a level, like a military private sergeant on up, to where you don't have to have full-blown investigation skills to become a PI?
Well, the 2,000 hours, I want to clarify this again, the 2,000 hours are on the company affiliation. The company, anybody can get a private investigator's license without the 2,000 hours.
Correct, but to become, they have to be under an umbrella.
They have to be affiliated with the company.
Correct.
The company, and like I said, we have companies out there that are already established. Some of y'all talk about different requirements for them. But as far as getting the license, and this is where all the confusion goes on, the 2,000 hours, that's strictly if you want to be a sole practitioner.
Right. Now, if they try to find a place and can't, and they say, well, I'd like to open my own, as long as they're not doing the...
And that's the reason I suggest the 2,000 hours go away.
And then the final thing was, our next meeting is December 2nd. I'm going to present it. We're going to, website's up and going. We have a membership directory now. All you do is click on that member, and they are able to put in everything they do, what they specialize in, and we're going to discuss about putting help wanted. Put a page in there. I'm looking for investigators. I'm looking for this. I'm looking for that. If people visit our site and see it, they can send in a resume.
Mr. Chair, it also sounds like there's a big misunderstanding about hours, apprenticeships, and private investigation license.
And that's with current investigators. I can imagine what fresh people are like.
And I don't mind one bit coming to the associations
Right.
and explaining that this is pretty simple explanation there.
So maybe, as you started off with, let's try to reach out and get some type of committee together with participation with the three groups and a member of the board to try to clarify some of the things that we're telling people that aren't exactly correct. Because that's what it sounds like. I mean, every other conversation has been to 2,000 hours, the company and the individual, and nobody has said the or things to become a private investigator. So I think we need to get that out, or maybe that's possible to put on our website, a clarification, because we're getting, that's all I'm hearing.
And thank you for the opportunity to come back up. Ms. Vest, you denoted in regards to the young lady who's on TV now that's becoming a private investigator. I don't know if you've watched that show or not. I happened to watch it for some reason last night. It was background noise, and it was so angering to me because everything that they did on there was like what I was saying earlier about, bugging the phone, bugging a room, bugging a whatever. That's exactly what they did, and all that's against the law. They're quote in California. It's still against the law. Putting trackers on vehicles, things to that nature. So it shows that we as investigators who aren't allowed to do things like that are not really doing the job right, because they can show those things on TV, and that's how it's done. So I can see where you're going to start getting more calls, and you're going to be in that wheel that I want to become a private investigator, but I can't find anybody to work with me, but I want to get my own business, but I have to have 2,000 hours. So it's an infinity that you cannot get out of until we get that law changed.
And just going to that point about the law change, if the commission is making that proposal, I just want to state for the record, we have to make sure that we're very clear on why we are proposing that change, that we can support that with whatever evidence. So I think this conversation is definitely helpful in that regard. And then I just wanted to pose a question to the commission that I don't know that you all kind of have spoken to thus far. What do you see as the benefit or the risk of removing the affiliation between the investigator and company?
I feel like, well, I don't know about as far as getting rid of the company, we got to do something to increase applications, new PIs. That's going to be our lifeline. My first shot would be take the 2,000 hours out. That would, if that doesn't work, then maybe something else. But I just feel like removing that. You go through the process. You talk to a whole bunch of different companies. They won't hire you. You can get the license, you can pass the exam, but you can't get affiliated. What's my next course? You've talked about it. Do my sole practitioner like I did. You got to have the 2,000 hours. You don't have the 2,000 hours, so what do? They walk away. We lost a PI. And I understand about tightening up the standards in the industry. That's the reason it was originally proposed. But then we cut ourselves off because very few people are qualifying to be sole practitioners with the 2,000 hours. So that's the reason. I think you're going to increase the applications. Yes, you're easing it up, but we're not dropping the standard. I want to stress that. Yes, we're going to ease and cut off the 2,000 hours for a company. But then we have the attorney sitting right here. We have the commission sitting right here. They're still in place to do the things that we were doing before we had the 2,000 hours without any problems. I know we were trying to raise the standards in the industry, as I understand. We raised them too high. We cut our, we use all kind of phrases to identify what we did and say.
And the question begs to be answered, if we eliminate the 2,000 hours, do we eliminate the companies also?
Well, I believe there's other states that don't have that company affiliation.
Right,
Can you
there's quite a
speak to
few.
that?
Okay.
Yes, Indiana does not.
We got to remember, we are ran by what we collect in licenses, so if we cut the company, right there's going to be $500,000 every 2 years that we just cut our throats. And
That's the reason,
I hate to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be reluctant. Like I said, the thing would be the 2,000.
Weigh that out, too. I mean,
Yeah, it's financial.
But you cut the hours out, you're not cutting company revenue out.
Okay, one thing I wanted to make clear and get on record, when you talk about starting a company, there's more to it than just coming to the PIs and giving me some money. I mean, they got to go to the Secretary of State, they got to get insurance, hopefully they get insurance, file a limited liability company, and just, what is that? That's like $300. This is very expensive insurance. So you're talking about someone starting a company, it has to have some money to do that.
It's a commitment to do that. I had to do all those things you're talking about, LLC, the whole 9 yards, and insurance.
Okay, we have someone who wants to speak. Your name, sir?
I'm Philip Burnett. I'm with Five Rivers Investigations. Also the interim treasurer for TPIA, which is the association on the east end of the state. Excuse me. I was wanting to address currently a PI company with up to 5 investigators pays the $500. But if you just add one more investigator to it, that goes to $1,000. What if we do something like prorate this? If they got 6, it's $600. 7, $700. 8, $800. I think a lot of your companies are reluctant to hire more investigators if they're at that 5 member mark, because it doubles their.
Is that a rule or law? That's a rule, so we can change that.
Right. The amounts are set by rule. Having it separated by the company size is law.
The other point I wanted to point out was, right now we have a renewal process for the investigators. If you miss getting your license renewed, if it's been a certain time frame, then you just do a penalty, I believe, and then you can get, after a certain point, then you have to go through the whole process again, starting all over from the beginning. Maybe, I know we've had a couple of investigators with our company that didn't get their license renewed because it was just too much of a hassle. So maybe looking at either relaxing that some or extending the time frame that they have to get there.
I'm sorry, I believe I really missed the whole thought of that conversation.
What was your second suggestion?
You have a PI who's come up for renewal, which is every 2 years.
Right. And if he
It is
misses
too
that,
cumbersome for him to continue in education? Is that what we're talking about? And maybe extend,
and then if he misses that,
Well,
after a
he's,
certain time frame, you have to start all over.
well,
Right.
yes, sir, but in that 2 years, he's got 2 years to get those hours. He could get it.
I'm not sure I want to hire a PI that's not
taking.
taking care of business. If I was hiring somebody, you have 2 years. We're all PIs, most of us are all PIs up here. We know what we have to do. We're grown-ups. And get your CEs in, whatever you have to do that. And if it's a matter of filling the application, it's a simple process. Hey, it's pretty quick. I've been slow sometimes getting it in, haven't missed, but there's no reason to miss. That's your license, that's your livelihood.
And
Maybe I wasn't
additionally,
clear.
the.
Yeah, let's
are you-
hear
are
you again.
Yeah,
Are you talking past the grace period? So that's actually statutory, that you only have 30 days after expiration before you have to reapply.
And what about extending that so that you don't have to go start the whole process all over? Like
That's
you've
what I'm
never
saying.
even had a license.
That would be a law change.
Okay.
Could they retire the license?
Sure, PIs can retire their license. It's $100 to retire your license. Put it in retirement. It is $100 to take it out of retirement, but you have to have the continuing education the year that you take it out of retirement.
Just an extending the grace period.
So you're talking about extending our grace period from 3 months to, yeah, to something longer, maybe.
Just a suggestion.
Sure, that's what we're looking for. I need,
That's why I wanted
this
to
is what we
Is the
need.
grace period 30 days or 3 months?
It's only 30 days.
Yeah, okay.
For this profession. They have 2 years, and then you have 30 days. You're expired. You're not supposed to be working. You're expired. But you've got 30 days grace period to get back into compliance so you don't have to reapply. This is a real confusion with some people, because your license is expired. You can't go to court and testify because you got a card that's got an expiration date on it.
You get a card in the mail several months ahead of time electronically where you can instruct you to go online, to register, to do all of that. You have plenty of time before it expires. to
But
do
we
that.
did put that up there, extend the grace
Yeah.
period past that 30 days. This is what we're looking for. We're
Sure.
looking for input. I need something, so let's, whatever we have, we're going to throw up there.
Mr. Burnett, am I understanding that your suggestion is simply to lengthen the expiration date, lengthen the opportunity from 30 days on forward? Is that what I hear you saying?
If I'm understanding right, currently, mine is July the 31st.
That's when you expire, July the 31st.
Right.
You got till August, 30th?
To
To
get my
get-
renewal.
get
make
your
sure-
renewal done,
Now,
pay
the
your late fee.
CPEs have to be done before July the 31st.
Yes, sir.
Because I did that once before.
Yes, sir.
I went over, and that was a $200 fine, I think. Because it was after
$250.
July the
Yes, sir.
31st. But,
Yes, sir.
but, so if they get into that grace period, I'm not talking about that part. At the end of that, which is 30 days, right?
So September.
Then they have to go back and do the $100,
Oh, they have to start all over again.
$150
Well, they
application
have to do-
fee,
it's
$100
$250.
license fee.
They have to be
Do they have to do
fingerprinted.
the exam
They have
again?
to, no, the exam is good for 2 years after the expiration date. And a lot of people don't know that, but if if your license is expired, you do have to go back, you have to pay the fee, you have to be fingerprinted, you gotta do photos, you gotta get on the system and do that. But if you've already taken the exam and you were, well, stop that. But if you've already taken the exam, we will accept that exam, go back into your old file, pull it out if it's been within 2 years.
That would
of the
be something
expiration.
I would suggest to go along with some of the other misconceptions, some most common questions.
Well, I used to go around to the seminars. It
Yeah.
sounds like we need another seminar.
Yes.
But I need people to
We're gonna have
participate.
one in March, so
March, you need
we
to-
do need to have you or somebody from your office to come to our CPE seminar.
Yes, just to go over the
March
basics.
28th, if you want to go ahead and pencil a date in.
All right,
What date is it?
March the
March
28th.
28th, 2020.
Just one day?
Yes, sir. Good for 6 hours of CPEs
Where's that at?
in Knoxville. In this, I may not understand the apprenticeship program, so, and this is just a suggestion, maybe the state could start charging for apprentices, $25, $50 or something like that. Have a time limit on it so that it's basically based for somebody that's just out of high school or just out of college that thinks that they want to get into this profession. Would give them a way to kind of like experience it without having to put in the $350 and to get the affiliation with the company. Doing the apprenticeship thing where the state gets some money from that, and then work for the investigators would be they wouldn't be able to work a case by themselves, but they wouldn't have to actually be in the, let's say, for example, doing surveillance. They wouldn't have to be in the same car with the PI. Right now, I think they have to be in the same vehicle.
Yes, sir, that's part of that I had forgotten to discuss. He's brought up a very valid point. Years ago, you could be a private investigator in one car and another person could be in another car. As long as you were in radio contact or some form of contact with the supervisor, if something did happen, you could ask for instructions. That way, you could be working actually two separate cases. Didn't have to be working the same case. That was changed. So I was going to ask you about changing that or taking a look at that again, because now you have to be in the same car with your supervisor, with that licensed investigator. So a lot of your cases, you're having to pay for two people sitting in that car while you're doing a case.
And it's really no benefit to the investigator.
So, I mean, I was going to bring that up. That's something we want to look at.
So
also.
adjusting the requirements, the rules for apprenticeships.
Yes, sir.
Is that a rule or a law?
That's a rule.
That's a rule.
We
Okay,
can
we
do-
can change that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Very good.
That's a good point.
I think this one's already been brought up. You were talking about new applicants needing affiliation. I was thinking, and I think somebody's already mentioned this, but maybe running that through the 3 associations that are currently
Yes, yes.
east, middle, and west. And I think we've got 2 chairmen of the associations in here today.
Yes, and we certainly
Actually,
appreciate
have
this
3.
participating.
Do we?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay.
One just stepped out.
So this next one, and I don't know, we were talking about the media outreach, footing the bill for that. Maybe the 3 associations could split that up. And
I'm going to
because-
explain to you, the state of Tennessee probably would not foot that bill. You have no money to foot that bill. Media time
That's what I'm
is
saying.
very, very expensive. Now, we do have a media department that I could do a little blurb with. I could get with them, and because a few years ago when it first started, we were doing something like that. I just stood up and do a 30-second or a minute of this private investigators. You have to do da 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 da. I mean, just that type. But yes, I was going to talk with the associations or any companies that are also willing to do some of that. We'd be glad to work with them,
I know,
as long as I don't have to get on TV.
speaking for, as the treasurer of TPIA, I know that we would bring it before our members and vote on it and stuff, but I would think that the 3 associations together could maybe split that up.
Yes, sir,
thirds.
I'm a big advocate with numbers. If I had to go before a committee and go, well, here's this one, this one's got 20 members, this one's got 50, this one's got 30, you can go up to the hill and say, we're one association with the state of Tennessee, we got 500, what do you call them? Members, excuse me. You got a whole lot more clout. Thank you very much.
Just to be,
Clear.
our association set up that if you're a PI a licensed PI, then you are an active member, which means that's $50 for the
Alright.
membership dues.
Okay.
You can be an associate member and not have to have a license. It's just somebody that's
He wants to
interested.
come and enter it. That's very good.
Get experience through that.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Make a lot of contacts through that as well. That's where they make the contacts.
Great points.
Dave Borelli, again, real quick point. One of the things we have not covered here is social media. You know, your Facebook, your Instagram, and that kind of stuff. I mean, I see advertisements from TBI looking for investigators, and I see advertisement from FBI.
Yes, sir,
looking
but
for-
you won't see the state of Tennessee advertising for private investigators unless they are with the TBI. That's something the association probably could do. One to associate, but I'm held by certain laws that I could not do that. I mean, we.
Change the law.
Yes, sir.
But
Yes, I can hardly get.
And just to speak
Get
to
a
that,
pen.
any advertisement that would come from the state would just be to encourage licensure.
That's right.
Actually getting into the industry and working, that comes from the other companies. The state can't endorse,
Yeah,
any particular company, so when we advertise, it would be, this is how you go about getting your license. But again, we get back to, once they get the license, they got to find an affiliation and/or start a company.
This hit me when I was sitting back there. You know, we're all looking for investigators to come into the venue, and if we would, either through the associations or whatever, advertise in Facebook or something along these lines, you're reaching the demographic that you're looking for. Because some of this stuff, the media and stuff like that, I know what my grandkids do. They don't look at any of this stuff, you know. But they're on Instagram and they're on Facebook and Snapchat and all this other stuff. Maybe put together a program that would
Thank you.
reach out to that.
Is there anybody else that wanted to speak?
I'm great with all the Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, but until we get the rules changed and the laws changed, I think that we're kind of beating a dead horse. If you don't have things easy for people to get into, and we don't have companies that are accepting people as interns or apprentices or whatever, we just need to get the changes before we open the door. And I mean, when we open the door, we need to open the door very wide. And I think that's when we need to go on Facebook. Talpi has a Facebook. Do you guys have Facebook? Okay. So, and then, and maybe by that time, we can all work together to become a Tennessee association. And we can open the door wide and say, we're ready for you. Let's do it.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Ms.
Mr.
Best,
Emmett?
I'm going to shift gears, and probably you're going to go there, but as the public, I'm still going to ask the question.
Sure.
I'll be interested in where the board is going on contingency planning, with it being the sunset. So I'm interested in. Because I've listened to the past few sessions, and we're still talking about the same
thing. Yes.
So as the citizen, I'm just asking that elephant in the room and asking that question from a contingency planning perspective.
Mr. Chairman and Executive Director Vest, would we need to have a motion on record to authorize you to contact the chairpersons of the various associations, along with a representative of the board, to have a little roundtable discussion and discuss some of these suggestions?
Well, actually, what I'm going to ask, and I had already mentioned it, now that we have got this information, I had to have a starting point. Whether we address every one of them, or there's something we can do by law or by rule. If it's by law, it's going to take a lot longer, a lot harder to do. A rule is a whole lot easier to do. I want to ask to get a motion to form a committee, And I would like to have each one of the associations have someone on that committee.
That's where I was headed.
Oh, good. Now, as far as private investigators, if I have two, it's a public meeting, but the committee is going to be a public meeting. I will make sure that is going to be so anybody can come to that as well. But I was thinking about perhaps myself, a private investigator. I would ask Mr. Kendall, since he is the polygraph examiner and the only one on the program. Then you have the three associations, that makes 6. We're going to have our attorney, of course, that would make 7 as far as a committee. Or whatever. Well, no, you're not going to vote. I got that. Me either. Unless you have some other idea. Help me with that. But yes, we're ready to move on, and thank you, Mr.
Mr. Chair,
I've been reading this for a long time.
I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the executive director to form a committee with representatives of the board, the various associations, and staff attorney to discuss some of the suggestions and work out some of the details and report back at the next commission meeting.
Doug Shanks, I second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It carries. One of the things I've thought of, seems that we need to divide all of these suggestions up into the 2 categories. One which is law and one which is rule. We can change the rules. We can't change the law, but we can go to the legislature, and it seems like that 2,000 hours is a real sticking point. If we can take one suggestion to the legislature, that's what I would like to do.
What is the process in doing that, changing the law?
So coming from our end, we would have to prepare a legislative proposal, and like I said, we'd have to come up with what language we think would be best. We have to justify that, have to look at any fiscal cost or impact that comes from there, any groups known to oppose it or support it, and I think that's where Cody's coming from with the associations, that we can tell them, all of the associations support this particular change. We would present it to our commissioner, who would present it to the governor, and he can put it in his packet. The alternative to that is, if the associations have somebody on the Hill that is willing to sponsor such a change, it can come from an association and that particular legislative sponsor down to us, and then we would just implement it.
We need someone from the Senate and the House?
No, because I think once you get one of them, they probably can find somebody to pick it up. If you have both, that's great. If you don't, I think we need one just to get the conversation on the floor before them.
Let's say we start this process, we don't meet till January. They're already in the session.
So I get timelines as to when our particular proposals are due. It's not. We probably will meet before that particular deadline. So if that's something that the commission wants, and it sounds like it is, and it sounds like the associations agree, I can go ahead and start working on that. That way, when I'm informed that they are ready to accept legislative proposals, I'll already have it prepared.
Do we need to make a motion for that or something, or?
Can you prepare a legislative amendment and send it to the board members, and we can then contact our legislators?
Yeah.
And we can get that thing done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, since you voted for the committee, do we want to go ahead and maybe appoint a committee now that let me ask the associations, of course, if they were going to be willing to participate. Would it be your chairs? Go back to your associations and ask their volunteers, or?
I think we can just request the chairman or a designated person from that organization.
You just want me to pick a date?
Yeah.
Is that what we're saying, and send it
Yeah.
out to the association? Well, we need to sort of get moving on this, because I will be on the Hill in December for another program, and they have. And however, I could be called up there, since you're already in the red, because it is a sunset hearing, at any time. So, but now I do have some ammunition here. I'm going to be able to say the commission has discussed this. We've had audience participation. We have association of participation. These are the things that we're looking at addressing. We now are going to have a committee to do. So we are moving on and trying our best to get this profession moving in the right direction for its membership, I should say.
Any further new business or old business?
Something I'd like to bring up.
Okay.
While I pay my fees like every other licensed PI company pays its fees, and I don't want to raise fees after 13 years of no raising fees, but is that a law change, raising fees?
Changing the fees would actually be a rule. I think we have to have clear justification. Also has to go before the Government Operations Committee, who will question why we're increasing the fees.
Understood. I think I have to throw that on the table because 13 years is quite a while, maintaining the same course. The other thing I'd just like to say is Executive Director Vest, if I, as an individual PI company owner and licensed PI, wanted to put together some sort of open discussion in a university or 3 in Tennessee to talk about the PI industry, could I do that? As long as I don't discuss PI commission business?
That you're going to get into a real gray area there. You have to be extremely careful. The first statement I would say if it was me, I would have to make is, I'm not here on behalf of the Private Investigation Polygraph Commission.
Of course.
I'm only here, so you could not speak on any law change or any rule changes. But to speak as a private investigator and a company owner, there is nothing wrong with it.
Thank you.
Right. Mm-hmm. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm just really excited that we have such an audience with us today, and I'd like to know where you have been, because I am here all the time.
It's much appreciate y'all being here. Y'all had some great input today, and it's given us a lot to think about.
Please come back. Please encourage your members to come back. They get credit for part of the private investigators that they probably never see. We not all the time, but we're always there are vacancies for people to.
Our meeting December 2nd, I'm going to present it that Talpi is.
Good. That's what we used to have the secretary, and then they do the and they
And particularly
our minutes and everything.
Particularly these people that came in from West Tennessee and East Tennessee, because I know you had to make an investment over and above to come here, and that's greatly appreciated.
And the only other thing I wanted to say is, yes, I can do seminars. We've done the seminars. I go to East, Middle, West, whatever. But doesn't necessarily seem like I need to do that if I can come to the associations.
Yeah, that would be good.
But I'm not coming to the associations to speak on ethics. I don't know a thing about ethics. I mean, my parents taught me ethics.
Verify that.
One must be careful when one says, I don't know anything about ethics.
Let me rephrase that. Ethics might be just a little bit different. So, thank you.
There is a program you did take here.
I did. So that's a little different, but it sounds to me like even at the associations, we need a company affiliate. How long do I have to keep this license? What does that mean? talk a little bit about the concept of the board and what needs to be done. I can do that with seminars, but now you do realize when I do a seminar, it costs. Because I have to get a room somewhere, I have to pay for that room, pay for projector. I usually have to take someone with me, and we have to come in the night before, get things. So there is a cost to it. So I'm going to have to rely on the associations to invite me. I invite myself. I'm just saying, if I can do it either way that you want me to do. Bring a tent. Bring a tent. I have a little travel trailer.
We'll mention that to Patrick.
Okay.
Okay, any further business to come before the commission? We did mention the continuing education meeting that we had earlier, but the business was delayed until the next time, so we will not have any further discussion on that one. So we are finished with our meeting.
Would you acknowledge our new members, please? Again, thank you.
Bradley and Kendall Barham, we're certainly glad to have you too, and appreciate your service, and look forward to your continuing.
They have a lucky one. I was talking to Mr. Brown earlier. When Mr. Brown came to his first one, it was a formal hearing, and that's a whole lot different. And Mr. Brown was kind enough to go with me to the Hill, but I'm going to tell the little story about him because all he did was
no,
sweat.
you don't have to go there.
He was sitting next to me. Poor thing. I mean, I get like that, and I've been going for years. But if we do get called to the Hill, I will be asking our commission members to go with me and a representative from the associations too. But I want to thank the two gentlemen for their service, and hopefully getting something out of this.
I'd like to ask you, are you aware of any of your counterparts in our neighboring states or around the country that are going through the same sunset or financial issues that we apparently are?
Yes, sir. We've actually, in this part of the presentation, we have done a study. Mr. Bain had asked me earlier at other meetings, and yes, sir, most of the states are going through the same thing. The association meets this month. I asked her, International Association of Investigators in Baltimore, and I was not able to go. I had no money to go. I have to be there a whole week, even though I'm a board member. And that's what we do. We have states there. We have other countries now. We're very proud of that. And Tennessee was a founding state. And that's what we do. We sit just like this and we talk about finding out what the problems are. I have my counterparts, for instance, we're looking at how we're going to change perhaps our certified trainers within our security profession to advance them more, maybe get them better credibility, do a different type of testing, or maybe require different testing. And I have reached out to other states, and Nevada is developing a program very similar to ours. So yes, sir, I do talk with other states on a regular basis. But we are not the only state. They almost didn't have the associated meeting because most of us have legislative session, and most of the states have some form of sunset or deregulation, and they have to be at their home in their state to be able to deal with that.
Director Vance, can you get Mr. Barnum and Bradley a copy of that?
Oh, the study, yes, sir.
study
I'll
that
send
came
it out to them so you can see
Okay.
that. Yes, sir. And it also shows that Tennessee is right in the middle of the fees for the different states. We're not too high and we're not too low. And we cannot raise fees just to sustain this program.
Good. Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I want one thing, please. In the last minutes, you mentioned you would distribute information from Mr. Duncan's work. The minutes indicated that you would send something out to us, and I don't think I've seen it.
I may not have done that, Mr. Bain. Thank you. But
Well,
from our last meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll look at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Get out of here. We are adjourned.